Hey everybody, we want to welcome you to this week's episode of AC on DC, brought to you by Nerd Herder. This week we are taking a look at another great line in the DC animated movies, and that is Justice League Doom, the 2012 animated movie by DC. I personally rank this as one of my top 3 favorite DC animated movies. I think easily that can be said for the same. But for those of you that don't know, brief synopsis of the film is Vandal Savage recruits members of the Legion of the Doom basically to take down the Justice League using Batman's contingency plans that he had in place for every member of the Justice League if any of them ever went rogue.
Because Batman's just that sort of guy.
Absolutely. Now, what I really loved about this is the creativity of it, and you see the planning ahead of Batman and the intricacy that went into all
one
these.
paranoid guy.
And the idea that someone could get a hold of them is the only thing I don't really buy into, because I think that if Batman was going to have that type of plan, that the security he would have behind it would be. But if you're going to buy into that, it's a great storyline, and we're going to jump right into it, because I think the greatest thing and the most enveloping part of this plot is the actual plans for each Justice League member.
The destruction of the Justice League on a personal level.
And it's the fact that this movie maintains the balance of each individual character's storyline and the cohesive overall storyline. One of the big differences here, though, that we start with is it's kind of almost cyborg-centric. You're kind of seeing this from his point of view, which is a big difference because he was not featured in the comics at all. So this movie, Justice League Doom, as it's known, was actually based off the comic Tower of Babel in the JLA line by
Mark Waid and the great Howard Porter.
And basically it's the same storyline, however there were some slight differences, but we'll get into those later. So starting with the first contingency plans here were for Batman himself. Bane was recruited, and he steals the bodies of Martha and Thomas Wayne. When Bruce comes upon the empty graves, he's ambushed by Bane, basically beating the crap out of him, and then buried alive. One of the less intricate contingency plans, if you could call it that.
Batman's a human.
Exactly. I mean, you have Bane, who's just a roided-out jock, but basically destroys and throws him.
And stealing his parents.
Yeah, it's a little dark, especially. That's one of those things like I don't think you'd ever see in a live-action adaptation, because it's a bit too dark there. Wonder Woman, who I would consider kind of the weakest part of this storyline, both in the comic and the DC animated movie. Basically, Cheetah is recruited to be her villain, and they inject her with a form of a nanite that in the animated version causes hallucinations so that everyone she sees looks like Cheetah, and she keeps fighting. Basically, I guess the point is to make her die of exhaustion and tire herself out.
I guess, if that could happen.
Which is like that. Wouldn't you want to know that it could happen first?
Yeah, you basically just want to take her off the board. I mean, Wonder Woman's one of those characters that doesn't really have a full weakness anymore. It used to be if you bound her wrists together.
If a man bound her
but now it's not
together.
like that anymore.
Yes, and the thing about it, I don't really know of any big weaknesses that she has. Maybe that'll change with Rebirth.
She's the god of war.
I guarantee you, though, something that they'll do with her twin brother, sometimes maybe their powers negate each other, something like that. But so that's her part of the storyline there. Cyborg saves her, eventually getting the nanites here. Martian Manhunter, one of the darkest twists in this one. Basically, he's given a chemical compound that sets him ablaze, and it's a type of fire that cannot be put out, so he basically just burns for weeks, months, eternity. Really, really dark, considering that's like his biggest fear, and it's the fact that they were just like, sorry bro, we can't help you. Like, just have fun being fully engulfed in flame at all times. So that one in an anime, that's one I don't think you'd ever see in live action either. Smallville did a little bit with fire, but nothing like that at all.
That's just terrifying.
The Flash is one that I didn't really buy into for the fact of everything I know about the Flash, and that is he gets the bomb strapped to his wrist, like we saw in the Trickster episode on the CW. It was adapted. Basically, if he doesn't keep running, it will explode and take out everyone within a 3-mile radius. I really don't understand why the phasing wasn't immediately brought to him, because this is a Flash that's well into his powers at that point.
Maybe the thing would have blown up. But he could have taken it somewhere, phased through a rock, and got out of there.
That's what he did. He phased through an iceberg. He ran to the Arctic, phased through an iceberg, and took it with him. That was what I feel like they kind of just played out for the sake of the movie, because in my mind, that's like a 5-second resolution.
Yeah, just got to keep the Flash busy for a while.
I guess the one thing that you could go with is at that time, he hadn't had the power of Speed Force thinking. Now he's able to use the Speed Force to think, and he can process variables and everything else like that at insanely light speed. So I could buy into that little bit of it. Green Lantern is one where it kind of really deviates from the comics here a bit, and that is Scarecrow's gas is used on him to make him give in to fear, and then Carol Ferris's Star Sapphire, who they portray way more of a villain here than she really is in the comics. Yeah, but so basically she talks him into giving up his ring and then collapses a mine that he is in, leaving him basically to be crushed to death. Thankfully, at the last second, he was able to re-summon his ring, made it out of there, so once again, kind of a plan that nobody really sticks around to see
comic books.
Anything was fishy. Everyone just leaves and assumes that
that's the joy of a soap opera.
That gets us into what I think was by far the coolest backup plan, and that was Superman's.
Yeah.
It was the idea that they have this a shapeshifter that basically pretends to be a guy jumping off a cliff. Superman goes there to talk him down, and he shoots him with a kryptonite bullet right in the heart. Which is great because Superman's impenetrable skin makes it so that no one can get to him, no one can get the kryptonite bullet out, and it's slowly killing him from the inside. Very creative. I think that's one of like the ultimate ways to kill Superman. I think that is like the most realistic way. Not in the comic books that I've seen, like Doomsday, something like that, but you can't just summon an alien creature whenever you want.
Exactly. But what they should do is just call Firestorm over, and he could just transmute the kryptonite into air, or change Flash's thing.
Firestorm will have a bigger role now that he's been made more popular by the TV show, but he was not in this series, unfortunately. But it's definitely one of my favorite takes on that. And then, of course, it wraps up after everyone saves themselves from their plan. Turns out Vandal Savage had a backup plan just in case they got to him, and that was to unleash the sun in this big solar flare type deal that the Justice League, thankfully, at the last second stops.
Of course.
All in all, it's very, very well-made movie. I think beautiful. Batman's fast acting at the end was great to show, just even though he doesn't have the superpowers, his brain is his superpower. And then, the effort that went into all these contingency plans. It's a great animated movie in the sense of an actual Justice League film.
And also just the cast alone. You got Kevin Conroy, Nathan Fillion, Tim Daly.
Nathan Fillion, I love him whenever he's the animated Green Lantern. But, I mean, some of the Justice League animated movies don't really focus on the team as a whole. I think that this one absolutely did. And it balances out the villains very well. However, it does deviate a lot from the comic book. Basically, this movie was Cyborg's audition for the Justice League, is the way that it wraps up with him.
Was the next movie after that Justice League War? So it was the New 52.
Yeah, it was.
So that was the last pre-New 52
and one of the great things at the end of this movie that I really liked is after Batman apologizes to everyone and explains that there was his plans that got it taken up, Superman gives him back the kryptonite bullet, which I think is one of the coolest scenes that I've ever seen. Just like, in case I ever do get out of line, that's kind of where we want to go. And the idea that there's that trust between them.
Oh, yeah. Best friends.
It's almost like brothers at this point, the way that I see their relationship, which is really cool, and that was a really touching moment. They always seem to nail those little moments at the end of these animated movies that are just like, give you the feels.
That's just what's so great about DC having this really long legacy of characters' histories.
And just makes you wonder where they're going to go from there, because they've always just built, each DC animated movie has gotten better and better, in my opinion. And now with Killing Joke coming, which we will be doing a huge special on in a couple of weeks, stay tuned for that, is great. But this is where we take the turn on AC on DC and compare it to its comic book counterpart. As we said, it's based on the JLA Tower of Babel storyline, and there are some big differences here as compared to what we saw in the Justice League animated movie. And that is, first of all, Aquaman not in the animated movie at all. I can understand why, but basically his backup plan was to be made hydrophobic. So this way he petrified to go into the water and he would die within hours, which I think they've kind of erased that whole, if he doesn't get back into water for a few hours, he's gone. So that one, I can understand why they wrote that out. One of the big changes was Green Lantern. It was not Hal Jordan in the comic book.
Kyle Rayner,
who I consider to be a great Lantern, but I like him as a White Lantern more.
Sure.
Basically, he was blinded in this one, which you can't use the ring, can't do anything like that if he's blind because he can't focus. Which I can't really see that being that big of a week, because Kyle Rayner was always shown to be one of the weirdest fast-thinking ones.
Yeah, he was like
that. So
super
I think
creative.
He would find a way to overcome that. So I can understand why they changed that to Hal Jordan. Plus, Hal Jordan's popularity is far more. I don't think we've ever seen Kyle Rayner in an animated.
No, I think that's the first one.
Yeah. So, and then Superman was a completely different contingency plan as well. He was exposed to red kryptonite, which made his skin transparent. And it basically caused him to absorb too much of the sun's radiation, kind of shut him down, which generated what we now know as the solar flare power.
Batman's a lot more cruel in the comic book.
Yeah, it's way more twisted, because Batman actually engineered, this is a specific strain of red kryptonite that he engineers for this purpose. One of the other cool things that I really like about this is it's ranked among the best Batman storylines of all time. It's easily considered up there. Now, you're bigger on the comic. What would you say are some of the bigger differences as compared to the animated
movie? Well, the main
movie?
difference was the villain's plan, first of all. It was Ra's al Ghul, also, instead of Vandal Savage. And Ra's al Ghul basically stole Batman's contingency plans to defeat the Justice League on a more personal level. because he wanted to stop them from stopping him in his grand plan to reduce the population of the world for whatever reason.
Population control. That's not that big of a villainous scheme. It's like, hey, man, we really need to get these people down.
So Tower of Babel basically came out in 2000. It was written by Mark Waid, coming off of the acclaimed Grant Morrison run of JLA, which pretty much ended the whole 90s regurgitation of comic books, with art by Howard Porter, who's easily considered one of the greats.
I wonder how they decide what storylines to make into these animated movies.
They pick the best ones, I think.
They pick somewhere, and then lately, though, they've gone off on a weird, like, Batman-centric tangent. It seems
they're
like
doing
the
that a
past
lot
few
lately.
have been that.
Well, they go with where the comic books sell.
I mean, we pray for the Blackest Night, but, I mean, you're a bigger Batman fan, a bigger JLA fan. If you could pick the next Justice League-centric storyline for an animated movie, what would it be? Surprise questions, folks. He wasn't prepared for this one.
No. I would say Throne of Atlantis, but they already did it, so I would say Forever Evil would be great.
Forever Evil would be a really, really cool storyline. I'd like to see 0 Hour.
0 Hour would be really cool if you're dipping into, like, the old 90s stuff.
Yeah, which, I mean, they don't seem to be afraid to do it all. I mean, if you're going back with the 80s, it's really great. One of the things that we do love about this storyline, though, is, of course, the work of Mark Waid, which Anthony happens to be a huge fan, so this is going to be our artist spotlight of the week.
Mark Waid, everybody! So Mark Waid is one of my favorite writers right now. He is currently writing Archie with Fiona Staples and Black Widow with Chris Samney over at Marvel.
Which apparently I'm hearing is actually a pretty good series.
Anything that Mark Waid is pretty much golden. On DC, because we are AC on DC, he started the big Wally West run of The Flash that ran well throughout my entire life. He also created the character of Impulse, Bart Allen, who becomes Kid Flash, eventually Flash, back to Kid Flash, and now he's some sort of weird Kid Flash from the future, but not really. Who knows? He wrote one of my favorite Superman stories of all time, Superman Birthright. He wrote
great story.
So good and tragic, very sad.
Yeah.
He wrote Justice League Year One. He wrote for a long time, he wrote Justice League of America, and of course he wrote probably his most famous DC comic book of all time, Kingdom Come, with Alex Ross, which is phenomenal. If you haven't read it, go read it. Over at Marvel,
Seriously, if you guys are watching this show and you have not read Kingdom Come, like, it's pause right now, go read it. That's like all-time top 10 DC storylines.
Easy, a top 5 maybe. He wrote with also Chris Samney. He wrote the Daredevil run that I love so much, brought Daredevil back into my life. With other things from Marvel he wrote was Fantastic Four with Mark Wendingo and Doctor Strange. He wrote a miniseries called Strange. But he's great. You should check him out. He's now the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer of Boom Studios, where he wrote Incorruptible.
Boom Studios is lighting things up, by the way, guys. Dayman is coming to storylines, which if you're not reading Dayman, that is amazing. Sheltered, I think, is actually by them as well, which is another great storyline that's been an option for TV. So Boom Studios is definitely lighting it up.
Check out Irredeemable if you haven't. It's incredible.
Great stuff. And that is going to bring us into one of our great segments that we love to do here, and that is our Pull of the Week. And for those of you that don't know, we've kind of been Rebirth-centric because DC is kind of launching everything differently. So my pull for this week is definitely Flash Rebirth. Great stuff. I'm excited to see what they're doing with Barry Allen now. It's the first Rebirth title to acknowledge the whole Watchmen aspect of things, too. He's kind of investigating things with Batman.
Which is really cool, because that's kind of how the New 52 universe started, with Flash and Batman.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to see this take on Barry Allen and the whole idea of, we got our first glimpse of Godspeed.
Yeah, which was really cool. I got chills.
Oh, absolutely.
His design is incredible.
It has to be brought to the screen.
There's
no way that it can't be. I'm excited to see who he is, and the idea that he was trained by Barry, because that's going to be the first time we've seen that. Someone that Barry's trained turn on him and go dark side, which I really like that element. But setting up some great things, and obviously we know the Speed Force Storm is coming. It's going to create these new speedsters. I mean, DC is really knocking it out of the park. This is what, our 4th or 5th now title that we've read from Rebirth, and there hasn't been a single flaw in any of these
yet. And also, Wally West is back.
Wally West is back,
and he's the Flash.
And I am actually going to take back my words here. I'm actually kind of digging this Wally West.
Right?
I like the idea that he's going to go off to the Titans, so he's not replacing him. He's just taking his place. I mean, I love the idea of other speedsters.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a Wally West that's not like. I wasn't a big fan of the Kid, I should say. I didn't like any idea of a young Flash.
Like the Kid Flash.
I like the
early days or the current
like,
Kid Flash.
Early like Wally West.
Teen Titans stuff.
Yeah. But the idea of like him leading an adult Titans team now, I can really dig.
That's what made Wally so popular, was when he was one of the founders of the new Teen Titans, and it was like him and Dick Grayson and Roy Harper and Donna Troy, and they were in like the glory years of the Teen Titans.
Well, I'm excited to see it, and we're going to see what we do now with 3 Flashes in the continuity, see how they blend together. And I like the idea that Barry will have someone that he can trust when stuff eventually goes down with Godspeed and these other people. So that idea of it, I really like.
Really digging Wally's new costume too.
Dude, I think that's awesome. One of the biggest things hooking at me. It almost reminds me of a Red Lantern costume.
No, what's funny is one of my favorite parts is when Wally's just like, oh, don't worry, I'll create a new costume made out of Speed Force.
I forgot we could do that.
Barry's just like, whoa, we could do that.
Which is one of the great things I love. So that's my poll for this week. And what was yours for this week?
I was going to say I would have went with Flash, but Chuck already went with Flash. So I'm going to have to say Detective Comics, back to its original numbering. It's written by James Tynion IV.
I love when they continue the original numbering.
It's great. It's great. It just adds that whole flavor of rich legacy to the title. Basically, in the new Detective Comics, Batman realizes that there's all these upcoming vigilantes that have no superpowers and that aren't trained as well as they should. So he goes back and gets his most well-trained Robin, which is my favorite DC Comics character, or at least on the top 5, Tim Drake, who's the Red Robin. He collects Red Robin as his little sidekick there. He also takes on Batwoman to be his partner, and they're going to train a bunch of vigilantes. The vigilantes include Spoiler, Cassandra Cain, and Clayface out of left field. So basically they're going to take these and put them to task and train them to be the vigilantes that need to take over Gotham once Batman and Batwoman are out of the picture. I loved it. I mean, James Tynion really knows how to write the Bat characters. He's been working under Scott Snyder for a long time now, so I think he's ready to take the reins and bring the legacy back to Detective Comics.
It's great stuff. So make sure you get out to your local comic shops and check everything out. And then just in a quick bit of DC news, the reveal trailer for Injustice 2 was put out from E3 this week, and it looks amazing. Great new characters. We got Grodd, we got Atrocitus, which I was so pumped about. Cannot wait to see that. Some great new storylines. For anybody that played the original Injustice game, I know that you're excited about this, so definitely looking forward to that. It's actually going to be the reason I buy a PS4. It's just to be able to get Injustice.
I've been watching this GIF of Flash beating the crap out of Superman over and over.
So
it's
good.
So
I love
satisfying.
The new suit that he has too, and everything's amazing. And that is, we just want to wrap things up with another giveaway this week, and got a couple of great things here. So we have this great Funko Pop Rocket Raccoon and Groot set, and this will go to the person that can tell us what the chemical compound that lit the Martian Manhunter on fire in Justice League Doom was. It's a very specific compound. First person to comment with the correct answer will win those. And then we have a couple comic books here to give away. We have the Detective Comics reprint issue from Free Comic Book Day. This will go to the person that gets the most friends to like the Movie Minute page. We'll post the link to. And then we have the Batman Green Hornet and Superman Red and Blue, which will just go to anybody that can guess the number that we put up between number 1 and 500. Comment with the numbers, admins have them, and you'll win those.
And look at those gorgeous Alec Ross covers.
Really great stuff. Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman wrote this one, and then anybody that knows old school horrible comics will love the Superman Red and Blue. So once again, just a number between 1 and 500. Comment with those. Get the correct chemical compound for Martian Manhunter for that, and then like and share the page for the Batman reprint. That's going to wrap things up this week for us here at AC on DC. Make sure you check us out next week. We'll have some great interviews from the Northeast Comic Con this weekend, and we will be taking a look at Green Lantern Emerald Knights as our feature film. So wrapping up this week, I'm Charles KIWACZ.
I'm Booster Gold.
And stay tuned for all our great stuff here on Nerd Herder. Have a great week, guys.